Good evening. And welcome to Seaford Board of Education board meeting for April 17th of 2023. We got a large crowd here tonight. A lot of awards going to be passed out here later to some of these young students. So we'll get to that in a few minutes. And I hope everybody had an enjoyable and restful spring break. And the time that we're coming in is at 6 p.m. First order of business is the approval of the agenda. Recommended action is to approve the agenda as presented.
Kim Hopkins, I move that we approve the agenda as presented.
Dare Savage, second.
It's been moved and second to approve the agenda as presented. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. All right, if we could, let's stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America, and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Before we take a moment of silence, ask you to keep in your prayers and thoughts Corey Mumford, 18, a Laurel High School student and basketball player who died last week from gunshot wounds. Please keep Corey and his family and the Laurel School District in your prayers. Let's take a moment of silence, please. Thank you. Next item is approval of the minutes. Recommended action is to approve the minutes from 3/20/2023 board meeting. All board members were present, so all can vote.
Mark Sarver, move to approve the minutes of the 3/20/2023 public board meeting.
They moved in second to approve the minutes of the 3/20/2023 board meeting. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried 5-0.
Okay.
Next item is public participation. I will turn over the gavel to my vice president, and she will handle.
All right, so next item on the agenda is public participation. Karen, do we have any?
Yes, we do.
How many?
We have Dr.
Okay. All right, Dr. Smith, can you come over to the podium here, please?
Sure.
And then for the record, please state your name and your address.
It's Stephanie Smith, and I live at 780 Houston Street here in Seaford.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Okay.
I wanted to, first of all, thank you for the opportunity to address the board. For those of you who don't know me, I am Dr. Stephanie Smith. I'm a retired educator, 29 years experience, 24 of those here in the Seaford School District. Most recently, I was an administrator in the Laurel School District, and I have been blissfully retired for 2 years. But I did want to address the board this evening because I'm also a candidate for the Board of Education. That election will be coming up on May 9th. And I wanted to speak to the board because I will tell you that one thing I've noticed this year about this board election, and I'm sure Mr. Chalk can attest to it as well, is that there has been an increased amount of interest in board elections throughout our country and throughout the state. I have received dozens and dozens of surveys to complete, asking for my position on certain things. I've been interviewed on the radio. I've been, there's going to be a forum coming up. There's a lot of interest in school board elections. And I think a positive thing about Seaford is we've not become a politicized board as other boards are having, the ramifications of that, and they see that happen throughout our country. But I will tell you there's lots of interest out there. And one of the things that I wanted to encourage is for the board and for the administrators and staff of the Seaford School District to promote this election and encourage participation. One of the things that is a complaint about school boards across the nation is that they do things in secret. And I don't believe that is the case in any way, shape, or form with the Seaford School District, but I do think we need to do what we can to encourage participation in the election. Obviously, the school district cannot endorse anyone or recommend anyone, who should be voted for. But I think we need to do what we can to utilize our signage, utilize messages that go home to parents, utilize whatever we can to encourage participation. Because there's also some very clear misconceptions out there about school board elections. Just this weekend, if you live in the city of Seaford, Seaford residents have an election. The voting, 340 votes were cast in the city of Seaford election. The last two elections of school board elections here in the Seaford School District, we had votes in the 360s. That's it. The city of Seaford is a smaller entity than the Seaford School District in general, but there should be a lot more participation in that in both of those elections. And one of the things I've been seeing as a misconception is a lot of people have said to me, well, I can't vote in the school board election because I don't live in the city of Seaford. Now, you have to live in the Seaford School District, and that encompasses much more territory than the city of Seaford. And I think we need to help clear up those misconceptions to let people know that the election will be held at Seaford High School on May 9th from 7 to 8, and that no matter who they vote for, whether it's any one of the three candidates running, that they participate and that we encourage parents to do so. And I would just encourage the board and the administration of the district to try and get that vote out there as much as possible for the night.
Thank you.
And that's it.
Thank you, Dr. Smith.
All right, moving on to reports and presentations. 6.01 is awards and presentations. Dr. Miller. Okay.
All right, so we are going to recognize a few amazing students, some who were able to join us this evening. As you know, we take the time to recognize all of our students, but tonight is to highlight some academics, specifically arts and that sort of thing. So we're going to start with the names of those. It is crowded in here, so we're going to figure out. We'll start with the middle school. So if you want to come up.
Why don't you go right over there? We'll read the names over here. And we'll have the students maybe pass through here.
Yeah.
Come and get their certificate from Dr. Miller.
There we go.
And then they'll go this way and have their photograph taken. Right over there by the school. I'll call the names and Dr. Miller will distribute the certificates.
And next time we'll have so many people that we'll have to have it through the theater because everybody's gonna be here. So, you can go ahead.
Do you want to do the summary?
Oh, sure. Yeah, I will start with the summary first. So there's a lot of names we will be recognizing, but we won't call them all out today. We'll recognize individually those who are able to attend, but just a summary of what we're recognizing. We have 9 students from the high school who made county band, 2 from the middle school made county band. This is, from what I understand, the biggest numbers in a very long time. We have 1 student from the high school who made all state mixed chorus, and 5 who made all county choir. We have 3 Seaford Middle School students who their art was picked at a visionary peace and youth art exhibit and is now going to travel the country. So they're going to be recognized in Wilmington for this, and their art's going to travel across the country. So that's really cool. We have 6 students from our Ed Rising programs who hopefully retire as future teachers here, who were recognized for, they both received medals. Taylor and Kaylee, 2 of those will be competing in the national competition in Florida in June. And we have 2 students from our BPA who medaled, and they will be going to the national competition in California at the end of this month to compete. So, and then finally, we have 3 of our middle school students who were the top 3 from the spelling bee, which we held right here at Seaford. We hosted for this city. Yes, county close, the world. And then our student Zion Miller, who placed first, is going to be competing in a national competition. So really exciting stuff, putting Seaford on the map, and we want to make sure that you all recognize those amazing things that you do, because you'll remember this stuff for years to come. We'll start with the middle school.
All right, so we're gonna start with, and I'm gonna go in order.
Only the ones that are checked.
The ones that are checked. Yeah, okay. So Molly Murphy.
Yay, Molly. Yes, so Molly is one of our students being recognized for the art exhibit, so her art is one of the ones that we're proud of. Ready?
Stay in front of me.
Two, three.
So next up is Jeanette. Oh, yeah, high school. This is, we're on to Seaford High School, please, thank you. And her name is Jeanette Alcantara Cruz.
Congratulations.
Yes.
Okay, next up is Joanna Gamara Gutierrez.
One of our future teachers.
Congratulations.
Sadie Blaine.
Another one of our advisors. I'm so excited. This just shows how excited you are and that you want to work for the Seaford School District.
Cristian Garcia Torres.
I don't know.
Oh, let's try this.
Okay.
Sorry. Jasmine Gomez.
And Jasmine is one of our county choirs. Congratulations.
This way.
There you go, there you go.
So yes.
Yeah, I guess he is. It's not coming. Carolina Gomez Gaspar.
I'll get you the right one in a minute. I'll give you this. You know what, make your own out.
Congratulations.
No, sugar.
No, that's not her name. It's not her name. It's not her name.
Thank you.
There's her name is Carolina Gomez Gaspar. Isaiah Sutton. And Isaiah is getting his word for all county bank.
That's right. And then I brought that later. Hopefully we should.
And Emily Torres. And Emily is receiving her award for all county fire as well.
There you go.
That's how we just want. Yeah. Can you hand me one? That's my. Oh, no, stay right there. You're ready for insurance. Ready for. That's Sally Tucson. And she is receiving hers, I believe, for all county fire as well.
Nice job.
Next time we should have them.
Oh, they did, you're right, a little bit.
We can get a round of applause.
This is the opportune time if you want to leave, if you don't want to stay for the rest of the board.
Maybe stay here, right?
I wish you had that they're being recognized.
Yeah.
That's really. I haven't seen it in years.
All right, our next report will be the superintendent of communications. I'll turn it over to Dr. Nichols.
Thank you. Well, welcome back. As Mr. Cole said, we're back from our spring break and several projects were completed across the district. So I do want to thank Mr. Henry and his team for knocking out a lot of work. And sometimes when staff aren't in the buildings, it's obviously a little easier for us to get some work done. So I know we had some work done here at the district office, Frederick Douglass. So we're happy those projects were able to get completed. Mr. Zoll and his team over the break, you were actually able to support and help about 200 families with the mobile food truck. So that took place. Now, is that going to be something that pops up again or? That's great. Thank you for your work and your team's work on that. And this is the time of year we call it testing season. So everything starts. So our schools, I like to say shut down for months at a time. So I know it brings a lot of stress, but the reality is our teachers and students been preparing for this since August. So it's really their time to show off. I know they're going to make their teachers proud, themselves proud, the district proud. A lot of work goes into getting ready for the state assessment from, Mr. Hill and the technology crew, making sure all the Chromebooks and wireless and the internet works. That sounds like something that would be so easy to pull off, but it brings us a lot of issues, and we've gotten so much better at that over the years. So we're ready, we're prepared. Our schools, our principals have a really solid plan in place, and we're excited for that. Today, actually, Mr. Cameron and I and Dara were at a meeting with the Department of Education and all the university partners. So we're a part of a pipeline program where we take a look at what we're doing in the district to support, whether it be teacher leaders, how we're moving people from para to teacher to a teacher leader, et cetera. How do we start training up new assistant principals, et cetera. And I think everyone's realized that it needs to be a partnership between the universities and the districts. So we can't have the universities going this way and the districts wanting to go that way. So I thought it was a really good meeting today of trying to get everyone on the same page, and at least beginning the conversation, because, even though it wasn't necessarily the topic, you get off on the tangent of the lack of teachers and the amount of issues we're facing in schools. We talk a lot about mental health, and it was good. It was really good. And the pipeline training that we're working through has really been beneficial for us. And what we found is, since we've worked with the University of Virginia and some of the turnaround programs, there's a lot of priorities and initiatives going on in the district. It's nice the district is small with 6 schools because you have a pulse on everything that's going on. But then when you hear what some of the larger districts are doing, the reality is we're all wearing a lot of hats here. So the bigger districts have one person in charge of a really small project that they can really expand on. And where Sharon may have 4 different hats she's wearing that particular day. So we needed help through this pipeline program. It's really organizing the work that's been done. So we're able to communicate it more, and we can really set that vision. So it's just a lot of different projects coming together, and we can see the light at the end of the tunnel. We're excited for it. I know, Mr. Cameron, your group is a major part of that. Who's really working through it. So it was good. One of those state meetings that you felt good about when you left. So, and that's all I have tonight.
Good.
That's it.
Well, thank you for those updates and highlights. All right, moving on. 6.03 is board communications. So I do have a couple of things that I want to bring to the attention of the board tonight. First of all, you have a packet related to the board of self-evaluation that needs to be completed. It is that time again to do that. This seems like yesterday that we did this, but I've given you the hard copy of those policies and regulations related to the board self-evaluation. The purpose of the board self-evaluation, the primary purposes of the self-evaluation are for the board to assess its overall effectiveness related to its relationship with the superintendent, community relationships, board meetings, staff, and personnel relationships. Also relationships to instructional program and relation to financial management of the schools and the personal qualities. Number 2, to critically examine the degree of success it has had in accomplishing its annual priority goals. That is the purpose. First thing, we will be doing this online again like we did last year. So there will be a link that will be sent to us probably tomorrow or the next day for sure. Each board member will complete independently the entire self-evaluation form and submit it to by Monday, May the 1st. That is again, Monday, May the 1st. After the forms have been submitted, the results will be compiled. And also I'll point out, remember that no one knows how you voted. It's all confidential. No one can tell who is answering what. After those results are compiled, I will give a report of the results at the May board meeting, which is on May the 15th, and share the results with the board and the public at that time. Does anybody have any questions about the self-evaluation of the board forms? If not, the other thing I just want to mention is the trip to Orlando for the NSBA convention. Was a safe and fruitful and good to be in person again. And Mrs. Hopkins, Mr. Wright, and Dr. Nichols and myself were there. It was a great convention center at the Orange County Community Center. We were at the West Concourse. It was great to meet other board members from all the parts of the country. Interesting thing is that basically we're all dealing with the same things. What we deal with here is what someone in California is dealing with, or someone in Texas, whatever. Some of the same problems, of course, security and safety, mental health, transportation, student achievement, et cetera. Also, I just want to point out, we enjoyed the dining and sharing of conversation with fellow board members, and also the Delaware dinner that was on Saturday night was a huge and great success, with all enjoying that superb meal at Del Frisco Steakhouse. So it was an enjoyable event. I will say that the number of participants I attended the delegate assembly, of course, on Friday for NSBA. I will say that the number of participants is down because there are a number of states that do no longer belong to NSBA organizations because of a letter that was sent by the executive committee back in 2021. But we're still moving. Their finances are thriving, and we have a new executive director. So I think good things to happen there. The other thing I just want to point out in my board communications is the next executive board of directors for the NSBA is May the 3rd. And also the legislative committee meeting for DSBA will be on April the 26th. And that's all I have. Does anybody have any questions?
No.
I'd like to point out that Dr. Nicholas is the only one that thought about me when you guys were in Florida.
No, we
that is not.
Oh, I have your movement too, Jeff.
That is not true, because I brought it up multiple times.
They did.
I said, don't forget Jeff.
Don't forget.
I texted him. And I texted him.
They take care of me.
Thank you. Next report will be 6.04 policy DM cash in schools and buildings. And I will turn that over to Mrs. Brent.
Good evening.
Good evening.
So with this policy here, just to name the name, which is a minor revision to be in line with the NECN naming methodology. It was last updated February of 2008.
Name change is on change.
The word, I believe it was moving from school to building principal too, but other than that, nothing changed.
Okay, we will have a reading on that later. While you're there, you want to do 6.05 regulation KF-R community use of school facilities.
So I reached out to L&W Insurance to discuss with them the requirements in terms of our insurance levels when an outside organization is renting our facilities. And I specifically asked them, is there any wiggle room? Could any of these possibly be decreased to ensure that we're still being covered, but also to make it not so much of a hardship or a barrier to entry for other organizations coming in and wanting to utilize our buildings? So they went back and they were able to reduce 3 different areas that are currently a requirement in our regulation. So the first was damages to the rental premises. As it stands right now today, it is at $1 million and it would go down to $500,000. General aggregate and comprehensive aggregate would also both go down. They offered requiring a $1 million umbrella as an optional, but not a requirement in terms of renting out one of our facilities. So I had some internal discussions too, and I think one of the concerns, especially, and I'm gonna use the example of the high school auditorium. There have been a lot of investments made there, and the reality is, if something were to happen to it, it would probably cost more than $500,000 to recoup and to, bring it back to its 2023 glory. So I reached out to the insurance coverage office and asked them the question, based upon our limits and what we are receiving coverage, what would happen if we rent it out, we have some, they have the requirements of the insurance, and there would be, a catastrophic event that would eliminate the high school auditorium. And they said after the $500,000 that's required, then it would go haul to the state, and the state would then take up the remainder of the cost. So it wouldn't be that there's a gap from $500,000 if it would cost us $2 million to actually rebuild and retrofit the auditorium. So that was definitely reassuring news, because I know that's something that Mr. Henry and I have talked about, especially with some of the renovations and the investments that the district has made over the past couple of years. I also reached out to the city of Seaford because they are one of our organizations who rent frequently, and I shared with them the proposal in terms of, this is where we're looking to reduce our possible insurance rate. How would this impact you? Would this help you? Or, please let me know your thoughts. And they actually did get back to me today, and they sent it directly to their insurance coverage person. Just by reducing from $1 million to $500,000 in the damages to rental premises, that would save up, and the term that they used was a substantial reduction in whatever they're paying for this year. Now, I don't know if they'd be able to get any money back this year, but for future years and going forward, that would be a benefit and be helpful to them. I also reached out to Pratt Insurance, to be very transparent. So we have L&W. Pratt is another insurance company that some other school districts utilize. I spoke with them, and they basically shared with me that both organizations use Liberty Mutual. And whatever we're being charged by L&W is the same that we're going to be charged by Pratt. So there really wasn't an advantage in switching from one insurance company to another. The other part too is, in the state of Delaware, you have to utilize an insurance broker. So I can't pick up the phone and call Liberty Mutual and try to save a little money for the school district. So those are the 3 points that would be adjusted in terms of this regulation. 3 different areas would be going down, and then we're adding the language of the optional $1 million umbrella policy.
Okay. Regulation 6.06 is regulation DKC-R expense reimbursement.
It's me again. All right. So back on September 22nd of 2022, the Division of Accounting issued a memorandum involving use of privately owned vehicles. So they made another number of changes to the budget and accounting manual that we need to now reflect in our regulation regarding vehicles and travel. So for example, the first thing they required is that any out-of-state travel has to be approved with a privately owned vehicle, has to be approved by authority. The other part too, they changed to encourage utilization of fleet is the maximum amount of the per day mileage is set to the fleet rate. So if you drive from north to south in the state of Delaware, you would still only receive whatever the highest amount is for fleet, which I believe right now is around $11. You would not get 40 cents for 100 or 200 miles. So we have now reflected those adjustments in this regulation.
Good. Anybody have any questions? All right, moving on, 6.07, the policy GBAA, sexual harassment. And I'll turn it over to Mr. Gold?
6 or 7, 6 weeks is my town hall go together.
Okay,
The two policies, GBAA and JIIIA, in line cover similar topics, sexual harassment, discrimination. Currently, they have different investigatory policies in them. So to make sure that we avoid confusion, we want to make sure that we're taking, that our policy and our regulations are up to date. Deleting GBAA, that our regulation, and using JIIIA, I don't know, I have a lot of issues there. As the specific investigation pieces allows us to make sure that we're all on the same page, using correct terminology and investigating correctly based on best practices from our state and our. Thank you.
okay. No, I don't have any. Anybody have any questions? So now you want to go to,
So I mean, they kind of all goes, like I said, GBAA, we delete the regulations to it. Change the policy a little bit, and then JIIA is then replacing the regulations. But it kind of covers all three of those in one.
all right, so, and then what about 6.09 regulation GBAAR?
Recommendation for me to delete that, or we will be deleting, I guess I should say, but the JIIA,
That won't be needed anymore
correct.
after the second reading of policy GBAA and policy JIIA.
Yes.
Okay,
So,
and that will be done in May 15th.
correct.
Okay. All right. Any questions on that?
Which one was going away? The R because it's also in this.
Because JIIA replaced that.
Got it.
And you're listed as Title IX
He
coordinator
is.
everywhere,
Yeah.
the LEA website and all that.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Sewell. All right. Item 7 is the agenda action items. The first one will be school choice. Recommended action is to approve the 3 applications that are applying and 1 denial. Recommended action is to approve school choice application 2023-24-37, 2023-24-38, and 2022-23-49, and to deny 2022-23-50 as presented.
Yes, citizen, I move that we approve school choice applications 2023-24-37, 2023-24-38, and 2022-23-49, and to deny 2022-23-50 as presented.
Sarah Savage, second.
Been moved and seconded to approve the school choice application 2023-24-37, 2023-24-38, and 2022-23-49, and to deny 2022-23-50 as presented. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Field trips, 7.02. You have a field trip agenda. I believe on that agenda, you will see 5 field trips. Does anybody have any questions on those?
Yeah.
There's 1 for the middle school. Well, it's actually 2 for the middle school and 3 for the high school.
Questions?
There's no questions? Okay, recommended action is to approve the field trip agenda as presented.
This is Kim Hopkins, and I move that we approve the field trip agenda as presented.
I'm sorry, a second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the field trip agenda as presented. All in favor, say aye. Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Facilities request. I'll leave on that agenda. You will see 2 facilities requests. I recollect that was one event, Southwest Titans USA Wrestling Team, requested by Coach Mark Quillen. And the other event is Stars on 9 Dance Center. Anybody have any questions on those?
I do. So it says they will not be allowed to enter the gym or the building anytime, but there's no bathroom in the auxiliary gym.
Then we would use the bathrooms at the front of that, of the facility, up in the front of the bathrooms, in the front of the gym.
Gotcha. Okay.
Thank you,
There's
Mr.
no,
Henry.
there's no alarm marks on, the alarm will be off once it's turned off.
So they'll be good.
No, freely.
Okay.
Yep.
Any other questions? Thank you, Mr. Henry.
Yeah.
Recommended action is to approve the facilities request agenda as presented.
Mrs. Darren Savage, I move we accept the facilities request as presented.
Kim Hopkins, I second.
Been moved and second to approve the facilities request agenda as presented. All in favor, say aye. Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Seven point oh four is policy DM, cash in schools / buildings. This is the first reading. Recommended action is to approve the first reading of policy DM, cash in school buildings as presented.
Jeff Benson, I make a motion to approve the first reading of the cash and school buildings as presented.
Marcus Rowell, second.
Been moved and second to approve the first reading of policy DM, cash in school buildings as presented. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. 7.05 is policy DFC, rentals and service charges. Recommended action is to approve the second reading of policy DFC, rentals and service charges as presented.
Marcus Rowell move to approve the second reading of policy DFC and service charges as presented.
Darren Savage, I second.
It's been moved and second to approve the second reading of policy DFC, rentals and service charges as presented. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. 7.06 is policy DFD, gate receipts and emissions. Recommended action, this is the second reading. Recommended action is to approve the second reading of policy DFD, gate receipts and emissions as presented.
Darren Savage, I move to approve the second reading of policy DFD, gate receipts and admissions as presented.
Kim Hopkins, I second.
Then moved and second to approve the second reading of policy DFD, gate receipts and emissions as presented. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Policy, this is 7.07, policy DJA, purchasing authority. Recommended action is to approve the second reading of policy DJA, purchasing authority as presented.
Kim Hopkins, I move that we approve the second reading of policy DJA, purchasing authority as presented.
Darren Savage, I second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the second reading of policy DJA, purchasing authority as presented. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. 7.08 is policy GBAA, sexual harassment. Recommended action is to approve the first reading of policy GBAA, sexual harassment as presented.
Jeff Benson, I move that we approve the first reading of policy GBAA, sexual harassment as presented.
Marcus Rowell, second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the first reading of policy GBAA, sexual harassment as presented. All in favor, say aye. Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. 7.09 is policy JIIIA, Seaford School District Title IX. Recommended action is to approve the first reading of policy JIIIA, Seaford School District Title IX as presented.
Marcus Ryder move to approve the first reading of policy JIIIA, Secret School District Title IX as presented.
Been moved and second to approve the first reading of policy JIIIA, Seaford School District Title IX as presented. All in favor, say aye. Opposed, motion carries 5-0. And Mrs. Brennan is already over there waiting for me.
Good evening. So
Financial report, position
Yeah.
report.
the financial division report, since December, there is an increase of $81,800. Most of this is in Division 2 energy. Otherwise, everything remains constant. And the district's financial position remains unchanged.
I have no questions. Move on to financial reports. 7.11.
So 75% of the fiscal year has been completed. We've encumbered or expended $781,000 since the March meeting. In terms of all local funds, we have either expended or encumbered 73.34%. So we're right at that 75%. And once again, local salaries are trending in line given the fact that we have the third pay, the third pay in June. In terms of our tax collection, we have great news. We received $67,000 in taxes for March. At this point, we've exceeded our 100% level. So we are at 100.93%. We also still have the second payment of senior property and the disabled veterans tax credit coming in later, which should be in the May to June timeframe. So we are in great position as in terms of our taxes. The set aside, yet again, remains unchanged since July. Nothing has changed here. You have report one? Okay, well, I will share with you the March 31st monthly revenue report. In your documents, it would be a long linear report. Our state funds have increased by just over $7,000 since March. The majority of this was $7,600 in terms of the spring unit count funds. So because we went up, we received an additional allocation for that. In local funds, we had an increase of $638,000. Of that, the majority of the increase in the neighborhood of $525,000 was in cafeteria. And finally, there were no changes in terms of federal funds.
Anybody have any questions? Thank you, Mr. Brennan. All right, we'll go back to 7.10. We need to approve the financial position report. Recommended action is to approve the financial position report as presented.
Marcus Ryder move to approve the financial position report as presented.
Jeff Vincent, second.
It's been moved and second to approve the financial position report as presented. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. 7.11, financial reports. Recommended action is to approve the monthly financial reports as presented.
Jeff Vincent, I move that we approve the monthly financial reports as presented.
Darren Savage, I second.
Been moved and second to approve the monthly financial reports as presented. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Item 8 is long range agenda. Great, you got the list up there. It's rather long. I'm not going to read through that. I think we have everything that's on the schedule, unless someone else has something else to add to that. Anything? Very good. Hold on.
Sorry, we got two things that we didn't put on here. So, this Thursday evening, we're gonna have, our CPD Perkins dinner with, when we bring in some of our community affiliates with our CPD programs.
Okay.
That is at 5:30 in the evening at the high school. And on Friday night at, I want to say 6:00, we are doing a immersion night for our incoming ninth graders to welcome them to the high school, invite them to continue with Seaford and their immersion program. And we've invited them and their families, so it's a family night, just to hear more about what immersion looks like in high school and kind of introduce them to their teachers. And we're having those same teachers visit their classrooms this week, so that we can also encourage them to come. So just trying to keep our retention moving.
Very good. Thank you. Anything else? All right, that's our long range agenda. Item number 9, we need to move into executive session. The personnel matters and legal updates and student matters. I need a motion to move to executive session.
This is Kim Hopkins. I move that we enter into executive session for personnel matters, legal updates, and student matters.
Sarah Savage, our second.
Then moved in second to move to executive session. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. And the time that we're going out is 6:51 PM. Thank you all.